Spearthrower. It preceded the bow and arrow.
These two are 3D prints that were made by CT scanning, CAT scanning with medical CAT scanner, two in the collections of the Smithsonian Natural History Museum. So these are the only two Tlingit throwers in the Natural History Museum's collections. There are two more in the Museum of the American Indian, that's part of the Smithsonian, and there's only 23 known in collections around the world. So rather than experiment with the originals and risk them, they're very, very fragile and incredibly beautiful and ornate. These have, actually the originals have abalone shell inlay on different parts of these that we weren't able to reproduce with the 3D print yet. But by scanning them, we're able to produce one with the exact same shape and form and grips to be able to test out whether we can throw with these. And our experimentation is showing that yes, you can throw with these. There's no reason why these couldn't have been used to throw. And actually with the CT scans, it revealed that the metal pin that is in here, there's a lot of metal down in there farther that's structurally in there to add extra support. In this one, it had a staple across it holding the metal pin down in there. So the investment of the metal in these contact areas with where the butt end of the dart goes in, that suggests to us that they were trying to reinforce it, that area took a lot of force and a lot of maybe wear and tear, and they were trying to strengthen it and reinforce it. That, to me, suggests even more evidence that they were throwing with these. These weren't ceremonial, although they're much more elaborately carved than a lot of the Arctic throwing boards. You can see a lot of the Arctic throwing boards are pretty plain looking as far as the shafts of them. They're smooth at least. They are kind of aerodynamic, but they didn't elaborate them with carvings on them. And so it's easy to conclude that because of the carvings that are on these, that they might have been for a non-functional purpose. And they're unusually short for Arctic throwers as well. But that could just mean that they were using shorter darts, and they might have been hunting something much more close up. They might have been getting real close up to the otters or to the seals before they popped up out of the canoe, above the canoe, and laid a dart into them. We're interested in studying more this area on the others, because most of the time when they're illustrated, you only see this because it's the carvings. That's all they show in the catalogs. Yeah. We'd like them to show us this, and so we understand a little bit more, because we aren't even sure how many of them have metal pins. But almost every one that we've gotten a view of this side, it's a metal pin in there. Yeah. And the wide range.
Of course, there's two things. There's the seal dart, and then there's a terrestrial dart. Both of them are the appropriate size and weight to do the job. I have a friend who killed a moose with a bow and arrow, and then took his atlatl dart and threw a stone point armed dart that he'd flaked himself, and it went deep into the vital area enough to kill the moose. Darts penetrate via mass versus arrows that penetrate via velocity. And a heavy dart is going to penetrate probably as well as something like a 60-pound recurve bow, you know, well enough to do the job if you do your part. But the darts have to be designed right, and they have to, you know, make sure that they don't break in places that are going to be in a lot of stress.
So there are at least two students in the Mount Edgecombe High School that hunt seals when they go home with throwing boards. So we're hoping that they'll make their way out here, and they'll tell us what they think of these as well.
The record with traditional equipment is over 200 yards. The record with modern equipment is almost 3. So yeah, and just with a reasonable thrower and a reasonable dart, a neophyte can throw 170 yards. But the point is, that's not the point. The point is, what can you kill with it? Darts have to have the right spine weight. They need to bend and spring away from the board towards the target. If they're too stiff, I have a dart here that, let's see if I can get it to perform as planned. You want to know what hooking is. That's where the dart stays against the board too long and the back end goes down. It's not what you want. Got long spear thrower, nice long lever, little short stiff dart. The way you test dart spines, you put a spring here and you pull it and you see where it actually bends a couple inches. It's probably 15 pounds or better. So I'm going to throw this at the target. I'm going to aim right at the center of the target. And it jumps the target. because it throws the stern down. It's too stiff and it stays against the target too long. But you can make it a good dart by adding weight and stiffness forward. Take down darts, anybody? So now if you put a spring scale here, and by the way, darts usually bend one particular direction. You find that direction, and then the cock feather, the single different colored feather, goes up. That marks what way you want to go down. So,
a lot more to this than I ever thought.
oh yeah. Well, the point is, don't call this primitive technology, because it ain't.
Oh, sure,
It
yeah.
is engineering as good as the people could do with the materials they had. So now this puppy is much more flexible.
Yeah.
It's got a center of balance forward of center, and it's got a nice, heavy, stiff front end. So now it's got those factors that you want. Now if I hit the target, it would go really good, right?
Almost like you planned it that way.
I like heavy darts. They're just stable. Normally with the demo, I get a half hour to practice before. A little high. And you can see it hits with authority.
Yeah.
Nice
hear
long
that.
lever, nice heavy dart. Now I was throwing maybe in fact I probably threw a little hard. The idea is you get a group of people, the women sometimes do better right at the start, than at least the young guys. The guys are throwing so hard, they can taste that mammoth in their mouth, you know? Oh yeah, you're using a great big lever to make it more efficient. You don't have to throw that hard. Really what you want to be is smooth. I do have different lengths boards, and you could stand here and go from one board to the next, either up or down, and you can just see how your energy goes down, you know, as you're going down the length of the board. So then you come to these guys, and you have to throw really well with these. Yeah, a fairly hard throw, but yet a lot of wrist, because you know there's two ways to put force into a throw. With the spear thrower, you use a lot of shoulder and a lot of wrist, and this you have to do both, but you have to make sure that you get all the snap out of the wrist you can to get these down to the target. I can tell Eric spent a lot of lunch times at the Smithsonian because he walks up and he does these pretty well, and I just want them to be longer.
So are they on a boat when they're doing this?
Well, that's the description of the
1788 account.
the hunters
Sitka Harbor.
hunting from
Are they sitting or are they standing?
Said they were in a canoe and said they were down, kept their heads down below the gunnels, and he popped up and hit the otter with ease.
Versus, you know, any other standard Arctic hunter, he's sitting in a kayak, legs stretched out, you know, throwing.
So where you
with this.
can't use a lot of strength, but you have.
You can't. Your throw comes from your upper body.
Yeah.
If you're doing terrestrial hunting, you can kind of do that part first, so your throw starts about your knees.
We were talking about doing some demos where you could sit and you could give it a try.
Well,
we might have to get some mats out or
actually,
something like
later we'll do that. I have some seal darts.
Do it the way that they
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I have some seal darts.
Then you really recreate.
The darts are about yay long, and I've got big, heavy points on them. All we need is a foam pad, and we can have people tossing to get a feel for that.
Question about this thing.
Please.
You're a little bit taller than Eric, and is there sort of a length ratio from here to there
Okay.
that is optimum for you and something
Okay.
different for
Good
him?
question.
Because of your efficiency?
Traditional maritime cultures that use this technology have formulas for it. The Yupik use the traditional cubit, you know, tip of the elbow to tip of the finger. The Anungan do 2 hand spans plus to the second knuckle. So yes, there are formulas, and then of course the board is made again to their body measurements. So there somehow over time they worked out something that they felt worked pretty well.
Thing that I always wondered about a bow and arrow in this country is how you kept it, you know, it's dry. Where with this, you don't have to worry about it. So how do you use this one?
Yep, just like that. So grip it down. Go ahead and grip it with your handle like a handle. Yep, and then your thumb is free, and your thumb comes down on top of the dart. So keep that down.
And then one of the
So there, you just have to grab through the feathers a little bit there.
remember the two
Keep
little
your fingers
fingers
down. Keep your fingers down on the handle. Don't worry about this yet. Grab that first. Keep those fingers down and go ahead and let the dart rest on your fingers. So you're keeping all your fingers curled except the thumb. You're just lifting your thumb up when you throw. Otherwise, you keep a grip on the thrower. They're simple.
Nice. Now,
Kill shot.
You want to try this? Give it a shot.
Choice. This one's a good one too. This one's a good one too. That's Rich's favorite. Let you know. Yep, just like that. And so you keep a good grip on it with that. You just hold down the dart with the thumb.
you snap your wrist at the end, so you have to be holding on to something.
Yep. So keep your fingers down on that. Yeah, there you go. Just like that. Yeah, so it kind of props it up on your fingers. And this is a longer, heavier one, so it may take a little bit to keep it up.
Where's like the stance?
Yeah, something like this. You can step forward with your left, and then you can follow through. Yep, you got it. Go ahead and
Do that one, do that one, and then I'll.
okay. All right. You killed it.
I'm from Sitka. Yeah, I did this once before, and like in the same place, pretty much exact same thing. Yeah, it was fun.
We're hoping that this will revive the art of carving these because they are so elaborately carved. It's a shame that carvers aren't making these in addition to rattles and masks and other things like that. And we hope that young people especially will be interested in carving these and using these in culture camps and bring them back. They teach archery in the high schools here. Why not teach spear throwing? Why not teach the shian alongside the archery? Because these were in use for thousands of years, really tens of thousands of years before the bow and arrow came along all over the world.
For these, the darts used on those, do you know the dimensions, or is there any other?
We don't have one yet. We haven't identified some in collections. There are plenty of Tlingit arrows in collections, but Tlingit spears, there are long spears. They're almost like harpoon-like spears, but there aren't many of the shorter form yet that we've been able to identify. There are a couple that are labeled shaman spears in the Russian museums, but we haven't seen the dimensions of those and the style of those to see whether they would be something that could have been or would have been thrown with these.
Is there something that clearly distinguishes an arrow from a spear?
Well, spear and dart are sometimes used interchangeably, but really spears are long, more for thrusting or harpoon-like jabbing. A dart is something that's a bit bigger than an arrow. Rich probably has a more understanding of real measurement dimensions for it. Arrows are generally short, and darts are some midway in between. And that's how they know archaeologically the dating of when the arrows replace darts, because the dart points are usually a bit bigger. And so once you start finding arrowheads like that, that's not a head that you would have on a dart. So once those arrowheads appear in the archaeological record, that's what they use for dating the transition from darts and spear throwing to the bow and arrow. And in different places, it happened at different times. In the Midwest U.S. is about 600 AD that the bow and arrow came along. People continue to use these also in Mesoamerica. The Aztecs used them, and so the word for them is atlatl in the Aztec language, and that's the most common term that has become adopted by archaeologists and anthropologists around the world for spear throwers or throwing boards. But since it's an Aztec word, not a Tlingit word, we're trying to use shi'an here, or at least throwing board or spear thrower in this context. Maybe it will replace atlatl as the dominant term for it in the future.